How's everybody doing tonight? That's what I want to hear. Okay, let's welcome the Large Flowerheads.
Thank you. Good evening. Welcome. We are the Large Flowerheads.
No gigs are the same.
We found we had some really cool common ground musically. We decided to mix 60s music with the grunge music that was popular at the time. We played bars, we played 4 or 5 nights a week. We were playing a lot.
I'm Bill. I play guitar, bass.
I'm Dave. I play keyboards, and once in a while I pick up my old accordion.
I'm Greg. I play guitar, drums, mandolin.
I'm Colleen. I play bass and sometimes drums.
I'm Marty, the rock and roll farmer. I do the production. I'm the guy that's never seen but always heard.
My name is Moe, and I play drums for the Large Flowerheads. And I wear hearing aids. When I finished my 7th grade year in elementary school, we moved, and all the girls that I was hanging out with pitched in their money and bought me a snare drum. And I took that with me when we moved, and I just kept at it and got a little drum set and paid for it with babysitting money, and then lied to my parents when they asked me why it wasn't going back to the person that owned it. Oh, I'm borrowing it. Well, how come you're not giving it back? I'm like, well, okay, I bought it. So that was kind of the beginning of the journey. On my dad's side, he wore hearing aids. I think a couple of his siblings did. And they all have loss in the same 2K frequency range. The switch flipping moment for me was I was teaching and somebody asked me a question and the answer I gave them had absolutely nothing to do with the question that they asked me. Nothing.
A lot of drummers have a lot of high-end hearing loss because first of all, you sit there, you have a snare drum, and that snare drum really cracks. Plus, typically, a drummer will have a monitor, usually like a bass sub-frequency, and a top box there shooting right in their ear. So a lot of times, drummers' left ear is worse than the right ear.
And it just got to the point that I started losing my voice. And it wasn't because I couldn't hear. It was just that the circumstances weren't working to my advantage. I just got really frustrated and said, that's it. I'm going to go get in-ear monitors and I don't care what the rest of you guys do, but I'm doing this.
IEMs actually protect your hearing. Now, I've worked with Paul Kantner's Jefferson Starship. All the years of him on the big arena stages with them amplifiers, he has no 5K left. So you got to dump as much 5K in the monitor that you can before the feedback, just so he can hear what he wants to hear. So really, it's saving their hearing.
I went to Blaze and asked him for a frequency graph of my losses. And then when I went to buy the in-ear monitors and told him, this is what I want. I'm lacking in these frequencies and I want to use this in-ear monitor system. And I want you to please put something in line with an EQ so that no matter where I go, I can plug this in and I don't have to ask anybody to change anything for me because that takes too much time. And so by the time I started phasing into in-ears and everybody else started phasing into in-ears, we took all the guitar stuff off the stage, ran it through Marty's rig. And so if you come see the band now, everybody's completely wireless and I'm the only live sound on stage.
When I first started with these guys, I had no idea what it was like to be on stage, to play or sing. And I would just hear all this really just noise coming out of the monitors. And I would try to harmonize and as best I could. But once I got the in-ears, everything was right there. I could hear if I'm clicking with everybody else. I could hear my bass, make sure I'm playing the right notes. So yeah, hearing is just so huge on stage, just to have it right there instead of just splattered all over the place.
Mixing a band to me is like painting a picture. You gotta know what the picture looks like, so you gotta know what music has to sound like, because it's totally different. everybody has a different thing what they want to hear. So you got to take the time and get everybody's balance of all the different instruments, vocals, and all that just right for them.
So I go in, I have a test, and Doc's, talking to me about the results. He goes, well, you have loss. You're playing drums, you're playing in a band, you have all this ambient sound going on. There's no way you could be doing that for as long as you are and not have some kind of loss. He said, it looks like you've acquired coping skills. He goes, you can probably read lips. And I thought about it. I'm like, dang, he's right. As you need to understand how your brain works, how it processes sound. And the conversation he had with me was just so good because it really made me think about hearing. I did already because of how I learned how to, when I started playing, I didn't have any lessons. I was totally self-taught. So if I would go to play for a band, I had to figure out how to play the song that they wanted me to play. So I developed my ears to be able to hear that. And in doing that, I started being able to hear different things in a recording, like the sound of the bass, if there were strings. So I had a really good foundation for things that you can hear. But when he had this conversation with me about how your brain processes that information, and then what happens to that information as it gets sent out through your body, I was like, wow, okay, sign me up. Let's get them. Let's do this. When I went to the open airs, I never felt like I had hearing aids in a way that I would describe as I could hear like a normal person.
Mo is very talented, and she's pretty meticulous. She gets the parts down. She's very versatile.
She doesn't seem to be as distracted by her instrument. I mean, it still takes a lot to sing and play an instrument at the same time, but it's not the same thing anymore since I think she's hearing a lot better.
She is not a heavy hitter. So she's not killing you with all this volume coming off the stage. She's very solid and very steady.
I don't really feel like I have to play and like bash out anything just to get them to pay attention. We have this musical relationship that we know where time is. For me, once I changed my perspective from I'm driving the bus to I'm supporting people, people play better, which is really interesting. It's really interesting, and people can relax, and so the band ends up being more musical. There is such an old stigma to hearing loss. I suppose it's psychological, but I just feel like a different person because I can hear ambient sounds that are happening around me more distinctly than I could before. Relationships with people, I can hear so much better. I'm finding myself asking for things for myself that I never did before. They've made me more cognizant of how I really do hear. And so I've taken that to empower me to say, please don't talk to me with your back to me and you're walking away. How am I going to know what you're saying? I have hearing loss, I'll tell you that. And then the other side of that coin is I keep forgetting that you have a hearing loss, which means that I'm doing really well. If you find yourself having questions about hearing loss, or maybe you're interested in some of the technology that's available, I would highly recommend the Hearing Matters podcast with Blaise Delfino and Dr. Gregory Delfino. They drop podcasts maybe a couple times a month, but the people that they interview are extremely interesting from all walks of life. And for the experts that they interview, these people they're the best in the industry, and they can explain things about the technology that you're using in very simple language. And I've listened to several and was motivated to go back to them to get the hearing instruments that I have now, because the technology that they were talking about just seemed so incredible to me that I couldn't not have it. So you definitely want to check that out. It's on any of the formats that you can download, and check out my podcast that I did with them. It was a great interview. We had a good time and talked about all kinds of different things that are hearing loss related.